Today we're going to draw a pumpkin, a bat, and a cat in a forest. First I sketched a pumpkin with the dip pen bleed. I made it orange and I drew a stem. I used the same orange color for the browns and the fence and the dirt. I clipped a layer on top to add some shading. I mostly used the airbrush normal for this. Then I used the symmetry tool to draw a fence and a bat with the dip pen heart. I mostly used my finger for this whole piece. I didn't feel like getting my stylus out. You can really tell with the trees because the branches are thicker than they would have been if I had used my stylus. Then I made a light blue sky and some dirt for the background and retraced my fence. I made it a little shorter and a little thicker. And then I used the airbrush to add some shading to it. And then I drew some screws holding the boards to the fence posts. Then I made the bat smaller and put him on the fence. I drew some trees in the background and I wasn't sure what color to make them, so I started with gray. And then I tried browns, but there was too much brown. So I made them grays of the same blue that the sky is. I moved the fence down a little bit and started drawing the cat. I think this piece has 95 layers, so it did start to get a little laggy at the very end, but the more you can use the layers, the more you can change later. I wanted it to be a black cat and a black bat, but it was really hard to make their faces visible, so I kept going back and adding more light fur under the cat's face. And then I added some shadows under the pumpkins and the cat. The second pumpkin is the same as the first pumpkin. I did an FX filter to make it oranger, and then changed the perspective so that it was taller and mirrored it so the stem's facing the other way. I added a layer of blue-gray mist and made the trees a little bit more saturated and started drawing branches. I had a really hard time with the branches because the trunks were on separate layers from the branches and they were not in the correct order. But yeah, I drew some branches on each of the trees with my finger, and then I used the liquify tool just a little bit to move them around. I drew them with the dip pen hard, and then I added a layer on top of each layer of trunks and branches to do the airbrush shading with the airbrush normal. And this is where I was getting confused with the branches, and I had to redraw a few of them because I had drawn them on the same layer. So try to do each branch on its own layer, and then later it won't be quite as confusing. But then you'll have a bunch of layers. So the big tree in the front is sort of like right behind the fence. And then we have some grayer mid-ground trees. And then the light gray ones in the back. And I tried to draw them so that you would see the moon and the bat in between the branches. Ibis paint has a bunch of brushes and they are all free. You just have to watch an ad every 18 hours, which is pretty fair. But I mostly use the same brushes. I used the kaleidoscope ruler to make the moon rays. I went back through the layers of trees and reorganized the branches and decided which branches should be on top of other branches, and I tried to shade them all accordingly. This part was hard because they look like they're in a line behind the dirt and they need to be in the dirt, so I changed them around a few times. And I smudge blurred the blue background so that it would be a little bit darker at the bottom. And then I used the liquify tool to make some of the branches a little bit thinner. For the textures for the trees and the dirt, I used the sputtering brush. I used sputtering brush 2, and for the trees I did a smudge and a blur, and for the dirt I just did a blur so that it would look more like bark and dirt. Then I tried to fix the dirt areas, but I was having a hard time, so I ended up just kind of redrawing the 4 layers of dirt, and I had to pull the fence down a little bit to make it look like it was in front of the front tree. And then I used 4 different shades of the orange brown color, and then I did the sputtering brush on top of each one and blurred it, and I tried to make it look like a gradient so that it would look like the closer dirt is darker than the far away dirt. I made 2 layers of the moon rays. So one of the layers is behind all of the trees and one of the layers is in front of everything. I used the eyedropper tool to make sure that I was using the right colors of brown to make the gradient look more gradual. And then I took some pictures so that I could save the cat and the pumpkins and the bat as transparent images so that I can make stickers or use them in backgrounds. I went back and lightened their faces again and gave the cat whiskers. I think it turned out pretty well. I like the color scheme and the trees with the thicker branches and the way the moon rays are poking through the trees, and the bat and the cat are kind of cute. I'm glad that I started with a pumpkin and turned it into a whole scene. I wanted to draw pumpkins again for the October theme. I think I like this one better than last year's. Thanks for watching. Have a happy day.